Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is James and welcome back to the Soundline. Today's video is as a result of popular request. In our last video where we were talking about the C-2300 preamplifier, I asked you guys whether or not you would want to see a comparison between a high-end integrated amplifier and a entry-level pre-power amplifier combination to see what the differences are between that change in configuration. It's a pretty overwhelming response that yes, you did want to see it, so we're here, we're doing that video. So the purpose of this video, just so I can explain a bit clearly, what we want to talk about is why would you go from a convenient all-in-one integrated amplifier to a separate preamp power amplifier. For those of you who don't know, a preamplifier is usually your control station where your volume controls are, sometimes the EQ and your input selection. The power amplifier is the amp that actually powers the speakers and sends the signal to the speakers. An integrated amplifier is one box that has both of those components built into it. So most people are probably going to be familiar with an integrated amplifier. Maybe they just didn't know what that term meant. If you have one box where you plug your CD player in and also plug your speakers in, that is an integrated amplifier. So for a long time, amplifier and stereo combinations actually were just preamp power amplifier combos. You couldn't really get integrated amplifiers for quite a while. Well, or the ones that you could get weren't necessarily that good, and the reason was that there was a lot of interference between the preamp section and the power amp section. The power amp deals with a lot of high voltages and that puts a lot of EMF, and then that would affect the preamp section, which is really sensitive to that sort of thing. So that's why it always started off as a separate preamp power. But as time has gone on and as the market has demanded it, integrated amplifiers became better and better to the point where they, were commonly sold. And even to the point now where, a good integrated amplifier from a high-end company will easily outperform a high-end pre-power that's only like 10 or 15 years old. That's how quickly the market moves. So what I want to do here today is do a comparison. I've got 3 bits of music that I'm going to use, a bit of a variety. I want to do a comparison between Accuphase's best integrated amplifier, which is the E-800. It's 2 by 50 watts class A continuous. It's a very, very good integrated amplifier. And compare that to Accuphase's entry-level preamplifier, which is the C-2300, with the A-48 power amplifier, which spec for spec has the same power output as what the E-800 integrated has. If you can see what I'm doing there, basically I'm just showing you what you get when you go that next step, which is from the best integrated amplifier you can get. The very next step is to go separates with the pre and the power. There are some cables and stuff and space and that sort of thing that we'll talk about, reasons why you would or wouldn't do it. But it's more about the sound today. What is that increase in componentry and that sort of thing? What does that give you sonically? So for this test, we're using the DP570 SACD player as our source. Sonus Faber Serafino G5 speakers. And when I do the test, I'm gonna listen to a little bit of music first on the E-800 just to get my ears acclimatized. And then I will plug the CD player and the speakers into the pre-power combo, listen to the same 3 pieces again and talk about what I hear. You would do it for sound reasons. Pre-power, just objectively, still is the best possible sound system you can have, where you have a separate preamplifier, separate power amplifier. Integrators have gotten really, really good, don't get me wrong, but if you're still wanting the best possible sound, you need to go separate. The downsides to going separate: 1, it just costs more. Like, if you're looking at going separates at this point, you probably have already gone through, 1, 2, or possibly more really good quality integrated amplifiers. You have to factor in the cost of a good quality interconnect to go between them. You have to factor in the cost of a good quality power cable for that power amplifier. If you're doing things right, you know that things like hi-fi racks make a difference. And so that's another whole shelf you have to factor into the cost as well. So it adds to cost and it adds to the space taken up, and if you care about this, then it potentially adds to the complexity of the wiring and behind it, but it's not really that big of a deal. I've rambled on about the system enough. I'm going to listen to these 3 bits of music and tell you what I hear. Right, classical CD, huge difference. Man, it sounds like a different recording on the pre-power. It's like just so much more open and 3-dimensional. Like you can hear the slight wavering in the violinist's hand far more. It's like it took it from like a 2D image to a 3D image, and you don't really realize that what you're listening to initially had that 2-dimensionality to it until you do that comparison. Like, you know, the E-800's great sounding amplifier and we sell heaps of them because they are so good, but it's only when you go that next step that you realize what you're missing out on. That's usually what happens with hi-fi. You don't know what you don't know. But yeah, that was really, really good. The noise floor was so much lower, and I think that's the main reason that I could hear so much more. That's usually what it comes down to with hi-fi gear. Like, having a lower noise floor adds so much, because the less noise you hear, the more music that was already playing you are able to now hear, because it's not shrouded by noise or by something else. So yeah, that's big difference. I'll just try the Rocky one now and see what kind of differences we get on this. Arguably a less good recording, although it is a really good master. So we'll just try this and see what we get. Yeah, wow. Okay, yep. Same again. It's just so much more 3-dimensional. In this case, the speakers completely disappeared where they hadn't before. I didn't notice that so much on the classical because I think the speakers had already disappeared in both scenarios, but on Wish You Were Here, I noticed a big difference in that the soundstage was just completely separated from the locations of the speakers, so it was, yeah, they disappeared more. The background noise had dropped so much, so you're able to hear all the little things going on in the background that they've put there that you can't hear in the first playthrough. So yeah, it's much better. I think for me the biggest difference is the 3-dimensionality and the realism. There's like that when you hear something and you just know that sounds realistic, like it's usually a combination of different things. It's kind of like the uncanny valley in 3D animation with people's faces and stuff. You don't know what about it seems fake or artificial, but you just know it does. And then when you see something that looks really natural or sounds really natural, you don't know what it is, you just know that it does sound really natural. So it's got some of that going on where it just sounds more realistic. A combination of the balance between the different elements, where they are placed, the tonality, the sibilance on each element, it all just adds up to make an overall more realistic picture. Product of lower noise, definitely. Like I was saying before, whenever you have the separate combination of components, when you keep things away from each other and have one product devoted to doing one job, that usually will result in a lower noise floor or lower noise in the system accumulatively. And that's what you're always trying to achieve. So that's, I guess, the fundamentals of how pre-power work, is that you have the separate boxes, the separate chassis with their own good quality power supplies, and it all adds up to a sound that has less noise in it, so you're able to hear more of what's going on in the background, get the depth and the realism of what's going on in the foreground. Hardest job in the world, having to describe how something sounds. Next time, if you want to know what my job is like, try and describe the color red. That's our comparison, guys. Obviously we can't really play the music for you or the sound of it on YouTube because we'll get copyright flagged, and you won't be able to hear the difference through YouTube anyway. It gets heavily compressed when it goes on the internet compared to what we're listening to here. So you'll just have to take my word for it. It does make a huge difference going from a, $30,000 integrated amplifier to a $40,000 separate combo. That is the next step. There is nothing in between, for us at least. Like that, this is very high-end gear, and that is the next step up. There is a big difference in sound, most of it being in the noise floor, as I've already said a couple of times. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, chuck them in the comment section down below, and if and when I get a chance, I'll do my best to answer them. I do keep an eye on it every now and again. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ka kite anō.